Welcome back, guy and girl gamers of the interwebs. This is Coed Guesting, and today we have quite a special guest indeed. So if you remember the last time, we had Chris Kessler on the show featuring his game Allison Road, and if you haven't checked out that episode, please go to that. But today, we have the voice of different characters, such as the narrator to Pokemon and Dr. Eggman. Mike Pollock, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me. Great to be here. All those words I'm supposed to say.
Now, Mike, you can take this time to introduce yourself, who you are, where you grew up, whatever you wish to explain about anything at all.
Sure. As you mentioned, most people undoubtedly know me as the voice of Dr. Eggman in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise for the last 12 years. I was actually the interim narrator for Pokemon, just a couple seasons in between the first guy and the first guy again. But I've also done a whole bunch of bit parts in Pokemon throughout the years. I've been in shows like Ultimate Muscle, Kirby Right Back at Ya, Go-Go Riki, Viva Pinata, and all sorts of weird commercials and corporate narration that you probably never heard of and have no interest in.
Well, I'm sure most people would have an interest in these things if they got to know you better, and that is why we're having this interview today. As always, guys, this is the time of the show where we're gonna take a bunch of different questions to ask to Mr. Pollock. Once we get through this section, we can move on to the fun stuff, but of course, we have to get started with the interviews. Mr. Pollock, are you ready?
I am ready, but first I'm going to do this. Thank you. Didn't really come out of headphones, but now they do. Thank you very much. Now there's less reflection. It's fantastic. These are good. Now I'm
Mr.
ready.
Pollock has revealed himself to the world.
Thank you so much.
Now, okay, what is it like to be a voice actor? The things you like, the things you hate, please just tell us everything.
The best part is the work. Anytime anyone asks me to go in and record anything, that's really cool. It means somebody's picked me out of a crowded field of other people auditioning. They want me to read and endorse their product or narrate their video or make funny voices for their character. And that's the greatest feeling in the world. It's like getting picked for a kickball team, but infinitely more exciting.
So
The worst...
no, go ahead.
There's a worst part. The worst part is the time in between. I'm a freelancer. I'm self-employed, as are all actors. We work for whoever will hire us for as long as they need us. So while a job may last for an hour or two or three or four, and maybe will be recurring every few weeks if we're lucky, most jobs, however, end after the first few hours, and then we're off looking for the next job. So if I'm not working, I'm busy auditioning to find more work.
Now, how often do you exactly get these roles? How often do people call you up saying, we want your voice for a specific task?
My schedule is completely unpredictable. For example, right now it's a Sunday night and someone is just emailing me to book me for a cartoon dubbing session for this Monday and Tuesday. They're going to need me for about 5 hours on Monday and about 2.5 hours on Tuesday, then nothing, and then nothing, and then maybe some more work for them on Friday. But my schedule is pretty much completely unpredictable.
So so it is 100% random. You never know when you won't have work.
With the exception of, for example, a recurring gig like the Sonic Boom cartoon, which we would record regularly every 2 weeks for 4 hours. So the producers would say, block out this 4-hour period every 2 weeks. We'll confirm it each time, but pretty much plan on speaking with us then. So at least we have some idea to tell other clients who may want us, can't do it then, I'm recording. But beyond that, an hour here, 2 hours there, 3 hours there, 5 minutes here, or nothing.
And Sonic Boom, this franchise, what is it like to work with them? I hate to say, but when it comes to the topic of Sonic, I've heard good stories, I've heard bad stories. I would like to hear your intake on what it is like to work for the people that...
For the first 7 years, which was Sonic X until the big recasting of 2010, I dealt almost exclusively with 4Kids. 4Kids would be the go-between between me and Sega. The Sega people would come in for video game records, but for Sonic X, I'm sure that Sega was overseeing it, but when I was there, it was just me and the 4Kids director and producer in the room and an engineer watching. But as far as Sega, they'd stop by for games. I would barely have a chance to talk to anyone or get to know anyone because they're scheduling actor after actor after actor. So here's your 2 hours. Ready, go. Done. Great seeing you. Gotta go. Bye. And I was out and the next talent was in. When 2010 happened, and I ended up working more directly with Sega, they would have me, hang on, the annoying phone is talking. We'll make the phone say, shut up! Thank you so much. They would have me go to studios directly. There would be more direct Sega oversight. I would actually start to know some people for Sega. Always, no matter who's directing me, with just a few exceptions, and those exceptions are almost exclusively not related to Sega. People are nice people. They know that they will only have to deal with me for a few hours at a time, so it's probably easier to be nice and easier to deal with. But generally, especially as the video games, now Sonic Boom, the cartoon, have taken a more comedic turn, the atmosphere has also become a lot more relaxed and full of lots more laughs. And it's tons of fun. It's always a joy to work for the Sega people or whatever subsidiary of Sega I'm working with at the time.
Is there anyone in the team that you've developed like close relations with, like someone to go out, have a few drinks with, or maybe a barbecue here and there? Or is it just all strictly business?
In my case, since the entire rest of the cast is based in Los Angeles and I'm in New York, if we see each other, it's because they fly me out for a business trip once or twice a year. Most of the time, we are talking on headphones, just the way we're talking now, using the same fine Skype technology, in fact. And as soon as the session's done, bloop, and I'm gone, and I'm off doing what I'm doing, and they're off doing what they're doing. One of our producers happens to live in the New York metro area, so we get together periodically. But that's also strictly for a lunch or two. We have no reason to get together for business other than during sessions.
Understood. Okay, so what is the most funniest moment you ever had while voice acting? Bloopers, it doesn't matter.
Bloopers happen all the time, and my thing is usually if there's time, I will take ownership of my bloopers and start messing up even more once I've derailed myself to the tiniest bit, and then start singing show tunes and just having a crazy old time. Hopefully it makes someone laugh and it breaks the tension. The most memorable audition I ever did was as a deranged chicken being boiled alive for a horror film, which sounded just as crazy as you think it would. Didn't book the film, but it was a very interesting audition to be a part of.
I hate to ask, but can we see that?
It would have been something like... more or less.
And did this film end up... Did it not release? Can you tell us what the name of this film would have been?
If anything happened with it, it didn't happen with me. And the wonderful thing about auditions is, if you're not the winner, they don't call. So,
understood.
Yeah, I don't know. And I tend to find that if it's something that I didn't book, I'm suddenly not very interested in it. It's strange how that happens.
I can understand that. Now, before we were talking about the roles that you have that nobody seems to care about, but fortunately, that's one of the questions we have today. What are some of your least known roles that you took a part of?
There's all sorts of commercials that I do. There are corporate narrations that I do. There's one prime example of less than exciting narration, but the reason people hire me to do this sort of stuff is because I make it exciting. It's about loan factoring. It's a multi-part e-learning thing. And I talk about how to deal with factoring loans for various business purposes. No idea what I'm talking about, but I make it sound like I do. And that's the best part.
I imagine they just give you the script, you read it over, you go, I have no idea what's on this page, but let's do our best. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Pollock, and this is the information I have to give you for today. I imagine it's something like that, right?
There's a producer in the room, usually the writer or somebody who's overseeing the project, who keeps an ear out and makes sure that I sound like I know what I'm talking about and I pronounce the words right. And as long as they're happy with it, then the job is done and it's out of my hands.
So I imagine there have been times in which you were like, oh, excuse me, sir, can you just explain to me what this word is?
Lots of times. Very often it happens midstream because there's not always time to pre-read the copy. So I'm sometimes reading it blind and I'll be reading a line and suddenly a word like what? What is that? What?
Oh, man.
That's why the undo button is.
Oh, of course, and there's also the delete button, the cut button. Such beautiful technology we have these days.
Sure, and the prime example of really bad, boring stuff, you can actually buy it. I did a couple of audiobooks for audible.com One is on physics, and one is about Nazis. Neither book should ever have been turned into an audiobook, but when they did, they picked me to read it. And I tried to make lemonade out of lemons, but it's still pretty lemony.
Well, you heard it here, guys. If you ever need to learn about physics or for some reason the Nazis, you can go to the audiobook that Mike Pollock is a part of. Now,
or if you've got a case of insomnia and you need to be put to sleep real quick, this is real good for that.
Now, you did the narrator to Pokemon, correct?
A couple of years, yep. The Advanced Generation seasons.
Oh, are you no longer the narrator in Pokemon?
The original narrator was there. He left for a while, and then when 4Kids lost their dubbing rights and the dubs were transferred elsewhere, he was available to come back, and he did. So I was pretty much keeping his microphone warm while he was gone.
Ah, okay. And the voice you used, how did you come up with it? Did you follow the original, or did you try to make it your own?
The note that the director kept giving me was, make it grandfatherly, which I didn't really think it sounded grandfatherly particularly, but the director did, and that's good enough for me. It was mostly, I'm just an upbeat announcer who sounds like I have some idea what I'm talking about Ash and his friends, when in fact I didn't.
So, Dr. Eggman, do you feel he is slowly taking over you? Has there ever been a moment where his character unleashed without you even noticing?
You can't yell in too many different ways. Dr. Eggman tends to be pretty yelly, and I've found that when I'm sometimes yelling at the kids, parents do that, the voice will sound oddly similar to Dr. Eggman. My wife will be the first to point that out, and it's really not intentional, but pretty much when you're yelling at the top of your lungs, you can't really do much in the way of changing the sound. So Dr. Eggman yelling pretty much sounds like me yelling, so when I'm yelling, conversely, it sounds like Dr. Eggman yelling. But it's not intentional in that way.
So I read in your facts that your kids play video games, correct? Mm-hmm. So when you are yelling at them for anything, let's say they break a glass or something, do they start laughing due to the fact that you sound like Dr. Eggman?
If they do, they're pretty good at hiding it. Depending on the intensity, because I can up the intensity and add, beyond the evil that Dr. Eggman brings, abject terror and guilt-inducing that only a parent could provide. And sometimes that will move a child to tears. I'm not proud of it, but hey, parents, I'm sure it's happened to you kids. But yeah, it's necessary. I can amp up the evil to a much more personal level than even a scripted character can provide.
So it's no longer, oh, he's just playing Dr. Eggman, actually angry.
Yeah, they have the advantage to be able to see me because I'm looking straight at them, eye to eye, so you can see the fire in my eyes igniting, and it's like, oh, Dad's serious now, okay.
Well, I always, I figured if I was to ever get yelled at by you, I would just immediately imagine the crazy hair, the big body features that he has, and I would probably start chuckling a little bit on the inside.
But here's a little acting tip for parents. To be really intimidating, whisper when your voice down.
Oh, that must be the worst.
Yeah. So, there you go. There's your tip today.
All right. The whole voice acting, and I was wondering, what was it like to be on the radio, and actually, how did you go about it? Did you put funny voices on the radio? Did you talk more than play music? How did that work?
The various parts of my radio career, the first one was, there was a high school radio program at the local college station. They would invite kids from the local high schools to come in and do news reports on their schools that I'm sure no one cared about. And I had heard about that and said, oh, I want to be on the radio. I want to do it. So they let me go in and I would read stories. I think at one point I was not real good at it. I was taking articles from our school newspaper, just reading them a little more interestingly than perhaps some might, but still it wasn't exactly a lot of creativity going in. Then when I became a real life paid personality on the radio after being an intern typing file cards for a record library in the early 1980s in Syracuse, New York, I was drafted to be a part-time overnight guy. So I was on the radio saying, talking up records and talking up Elton John and Barbra Streisand and whatever else I was doing. that for a while. They had me filling on various other shifts. I produced the morning show for a while. Then I went to another station, did production. And it was in that time when I was doing both of those jobs, I realized that what I really enjoyed was doing wacky voices in commercials. So if there was a commercial and they knew that I could do voices, they said, come here, come be this old guy, or be this lady who obviously doesn't sound like a lady, but it's going to be you for this project, or be the voice of this gorilla for the bus to the zoo, which I did for a while. And so I was very lucky to get those weird, eccentric character parts. Same thing when I was as a production director. I was writing commercials for myself to highlight those voices. Then moved to a radio syndication outfit where I was writing comedy and occasionally doing voices for radio stations around the country. And eventually was able to build a demo tape channeling all those voices. And that's the demo tape that I sent around to places like 4Kids for Pokemon and for the Fox Box and 4Kids TV. And that has ultimately snowballed into a whole bunch of other work.
So it's fair to say that radio was what helped you get into what you are today.
Yeah, it's not really, there is no absolute common path that every actor takes into this profession, but it's the path that I took, and it happened to work for me because radio is a passion. Radio involves doing voices. I worked radio to the point where it involved me having my funny voices be part of it, and then eventually it became just funny voices. And still the plain serious voices. Obviously, I'm not reading boring books about physics and Nazis in wacky character voices, so I know how to both do wacky characters and also sound like I'm talking about a subject I have no knowledge about while using a fairly normal voice.
So, when you were playing for the radio, was it music that you were into? What was your music taste back then?
I worked at an adult contemporary station. Actually, I guess there were both a couple of adult contemporary stations. I could tolerate most of the music, but back in the 80s, music became kind of bland, with the emphasis on blah in that word. Then I worked at a rock station for a year, and I recall when the program director fired me. In radio, you can get fired for reasons like this one. You're not rock and roll enough. Really? And there's no other profession where that would ever apply, as far as I can tell. But yeah, I was not rock and roll enough, and we all learned that the hard way. But
do you like rock and roll?
I did not like rock and roll at the time. I guess I still don't. When I was after that station, I went into the radio syndication thing where I was writing song parodies for all genres of music. I was doing top 40 stuff in the early 90s. I was doing oldies, which was stuff from the 50s and 60s. I was doing country at the time, the current country stuff in the 90s, and the occasional classic rock tune that would come in. I can tolerate songs if I'm writing a song parody and just writing lyrics, as long as there's a melody to follow, or if it's rap, which I can also write if I'm being told to. If there's a real live pattern to the rap and it's got some sort of musicality to it, then I can make that work too. But rock was never a choice. If it's just me being an actor, I like show tunes because I've done musicals with my life. Like oldies, as I mentioned, the oldies that I was writing song parodies to, I really felt a connection to. I like novelty records, like other song parodies that other people do, and also people that write original comedy music, and country music. As I was writing the country song parodies, I found country songs here and there, which I thought, hey, there's a tune there. It's catchy. I like it. I'll take that for my playlist.
All right, and this is going to be the final question for the interview segment of this interview.
Okay.
Is there any character that you regret doing, a character that you feel like you should have just never taken a part of?
I love working. If someone is going to book me for something, that's a tremendous compliment. So whether the project might not seem so great, I'm there to do the best I can, or the best I can stand to do with the director at hand. And there are a couple of directors that don't always get the best performance because they apparently don't want it. So I'll give them the best performance that they want, even if it's not necessarily the best I could do. But they picked me. That's pretty cool. So no, I don't regret anything. I have no regrets.
Has there ever been a character that once you were told what to do, how to do it, you said, I'm not really 100% sure that I want to do that?
Not at all. I'm an actor. My job is to read what's on the page. So you put something on the page and pay me a decent wage to say it, because while I'm in it for the fun, it's food, clothing, and shelter, not free. So someone's got to pay me. But You know, just like if a painter comes to paint your house, he doesn't have to like the color, but he's going to do a good job of painting your walls for you. Thank you. It's a job, but it's a job I happen to love, and I'm not the critic. I'm not there to say, this is not a great project. This is not a great character. I may question a line reading or two, or I may question a grammatical error in a line, but generally I'm not going to say, why are you making this cartoon? Why are you making this movie? I'm just an ingredient in a souffle. And the baking powder doesn't say, I don't want to be in a cake. You need baking powder to make a cake, don't you? I think so. I've never made a cake.
I'm pretty sure. I don't bake.
You need eggs. You need,
Yeah.
Okay, we're making Eggman. Fine. You need eggs to make a cake, I think. So the eggs don't say, well, I don't want to be in a cake. I want
of evil ham.
Yes, exactly.
Like...
But the egg doesn't say, I don't want to be in a cake. I want to be an Eggs Benedict. The egg doesn't care. The egg is there to be an egg.
So I know I said this just sparked the question, what is the evil ham? Please explain that to us.
Well, it came from the first episode of Sonic Boom, which became part of the trailer. At one point, Eggman flies out of the scene saying, I'll be back with a new robot who'll have super laser eyes, and he'll feed me ham. Evil ham. Just a line the writers wrote. Again, I was there to deliver the line. I didn't think much of it at the time. I said, okay, I know how you probably want this delivered. I delivered it the way they wanted it. They seemed to be happy. Off it went. And by the time that was released as a trailer, it became the big finish to the trailer, I guess, in such a way that it caught the world's attention, such as it is. And it took on a life of its own. And then me, with the creative mind that I have, I said, there's a product called Underwood Deviled Ham. And if you take out the D at the beginning and the ED at the end, you end up with Evil Ham. So you can actually buy for $5 at my convention appearances or from my website to make yourself a can of Evil Ham. And with the magic of correction fluid, paint out the letters and make it easy.
Okay, so that was the interview section of this strange co-ed guesting interview. So we're gonna move on to the next segment, and I do this with all of my guests.
Here it
It's
comes.
this or that. Basically, I'm gonna ask you pick one thing out of two, and we're gonna see what your preference is.
Okay.
Shall we begin?
I suppose.
All right, let's do it. So, first question has to be Sonic or Shadow. Who do you prefer?
People would probably want me to say Shadow because Dr. Eggman, of course, was integral to his creation, but Sonic is just, he's the guy. They named the show after him. They named the games after him. Sonic.
Coffee or tea?
I'm having coffee right now. It's an iced coffee. That's the drink of choice, and the second drink of choice would be an iced tea. So I like them both, but coffee's a clear winner.
All right. New York or California?
New York is the greatest city in the world, as famed DJ in New York, Ron Lundy, would always say. Hello, Lon! Good morning for the greatest city in the world! And New York's my home. New York's always been my home. California, Los Angeles specifically, where it's always great to fly out and especially do some Sonic work and get to meet the folks at the other end of the studio and get to hang out in person for a while. But there's the traffic. New York has mass transit. I can go in on a bus and take subways around and do a little walking. It's a very walkable city. California is spread out and you have to drive.
Now, voice acting for video games or voice acting for television?
I hate to have a preference, but the only reason I have a preference is a technical preference. Video games are a lot more disjointed. So it's a lot more, because stories can fork in many directions. You've got to have, you're rereading the same bits of scenes with slight variations. And then there's always maybe an hour of reacts of just, which gets, a little tiring after a while. There's also, especially in the Sonic games, there's an extra amount of yelling, so it gets a little strenuous at times. But video games just tend to be a lot more disjointed. The scripts are laid out in such a way that Each character's lines are separated. So, for example, a Sonic video game, you'll have a whole bunch of Sonic lines, a whole bunch of Amy lines, a whole bunch of Knuckle lines, Knuckles lines, him too, both of them plural. A whole bunch of Dr. Eggman lines. So when I come in, I'm pretty much only seeing my lines. The other lines are there in the script, but I don't have time to sit and read them because I'm booked for 4 hours. It's not 4 hours plus half an hour to browse the script. Time is money, and time is valuable, and time is tight. So I see my lines. The directors and producer will give me notes and background, so I know kind of what's going on in the scene, or at least enough to know that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And I will be able to somewhat follow the story. For television, whether it's a prelay show where we're all reading live before they animate it, or a dubbing situation where we are adding our voices over existing video, there is at least bits more of dialogue. Dubbing, you're usually recording separately, but you're listening to either stuff that someone else came in and recorded before you, or you're imagining what the line's going to sound like by reading the script and imagining it in your head. Or if you're doing a prelay show like Sonic Boom, most of us are at least in the same space and time, if not in the same place. So I'll hear everyone else reading their lines, and we get to act and react, because the essence of acting is reacting, as one of my favorite instructors like to say. So you get to listen in real time and react to people in real time, and the performance can be a little bit more organic. And if we were to furthermore, this is a very long answer to a very short question. If we were to break it down even further between prelay and dubbing, probably prelay is a bit more of a treat, again, because usually I'm working with other people and acting more like I would act when I was on stage. But also, even if we're recording separately and we're doing prelay, there are no time constraints. When you're dubbing, you've got to match the flap that's already on the video, and if you somehow get off the flap... Oh, he stopped talking! This is, by the way, character. Thank you very much. You have to go back and you have to redo it and match the flap a little bit better. With prelay, you just read stuff, and then they animate it later. They match your voice to create the flap. So everything is perfectly in sync. I did that backwards, but anyway. So there's your answer. I think I answered that.
So let's just get the definite answer in case nobody calls.
Given the choice that you had TV versus video games, purely from a technical standpoint.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, this is the final segment to the co-ed guesting live stream. At this moment, I would like to thank you, Mr. Pollock, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. All the stuff that I'm supposed to say at the end of the interview.
Well, let's just give off that quick smile and ding. So, this is gonna be the fun section of the co-ed guesting live stream. Usually I always challenge my guests to do a specific something. As you guys may or may not know, voice actors generally like to do tongue twisters whenever they're practicing or even warming up. And today we're gonna challenge Dr. Eggman to say a few tongue twisters as fast as he can without messing up. He will get one chance for each of these tongue twisters. If he does it incorrectly, he'll hear the buzzer sound. Unfortunately, you can't hear the buzzer sound, Mr. Pollock, but...
Oh, I'll know if I screw up, not to worry.
And if he gets it correct, he will, you as the viewer will hear the wonderful ding sound. So, I've sent you the tongue twisters.
I'm putting on the reading glasses again, just to be sure. Give myself every possible advantage.
Are you ready, Dr. Eggman?
As ready as possible.
3, 2, 1. First sentence, go.
How can a clam cram in a clean green can?
Second sentence, go.
The 33 thieves thought that they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday.
Final sentence, Eggman, go.
I wish to wish the wish you wish to wish, but if you wish the wish the witch wishes, I won't wish the wish you wish to wish.
Nicely done.
Thank you so much. Sometimes
impressive.
I myself. Thank you so much.
Well, guys, that is all the time we have today. If you lovely viewers enjoyed the show, please hit the like, comment, and share buttons. Don't forget to subscribe to Co-ed Gaming for some more awesome content and another interview coming up within the next couple of months. Check out Mr. Pollock's website, which will be found in the description below. And I've said this before, but it's been a pleasure to have you, Mr. Pollock.
Thanks so much. It's great to be had.
Now, what we're going to do right now is when I say be good and as always, I want you to say game on as excitedly as you can. Can you do that for me?
Sure I can.
All right, guys, just remember, be good and as always,
game on!
Holy shit, so you made it to the end of the video, didn't you? That means you kind of liked it, huh? So why don't you go ahead, hit that like button, leave us a comment, maybe hit the share button to tell your friends about Co-Ed Gaming. Don't forget to press that subscribe button to see more videos that we all make. And hey, why don't you go ahead and click that box right there to see a video that I made not too far back. Get ready for my next video, which is coming out next Friday. No animals were harmed in the making of this film, and if you think we did well, then you're still that shallow prick. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and as always, guys, you guys are fucking beautiful.